Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today we want to look at this, a bloody big NAS. This is the Synology DS2422 Plus. It was kind of released, depending on where you are in the world, right at the very end of 2021 and at the start of 2022, and it is their SMB level 12 bay NAS. Now, why am I adding that distinction at the beginning, SMB, otherwise known as small medium business? Well, at the same time as this solution, another solution from Synology was introduced into the market, which frankly overshadowed it quite dramatically. That was the DS2622 XS Plus. That was a 10 GBE Xeon powered, massively scalable enterprise grade 12 bay solution, and releasing that at the same time as this, a system that looks comparatively weaker, was perhaps not the greatest move. Now, I say that there is a few key differences between them, which almost certainly will mean that this solution is one that's going to be more befitting you, the end user, notwithstanding the fact that it is more than £1,000 less in its price tag. Now, in today's video, we're going to be unboxing this bad boy. We're going to talk a lot more about its architecture, and we're going to unbox this. Now, today's Synology has been supplied by CCL Solution. I don't know if you know about them. They're a company in the UK. Again, lots of us have purchased from them in the UK, and they've kindly supplied us with today's solution. So they're linked in the description. Again, they've helped me out in a few videos there in the past, and I just wanted to give them a better shout out as we make these videos moving forward. So again, they're linked in the description, link to the products, link to their site, check them out. But for now, let's crack on with today's review. So the DS2422, as mentioned, is the latest generation of that 12 bay SMB series from Synology. It's also a solution that champions storage over power. When you are buying any Synology solution, if you've already decided that you're going to opt in to the disk station or rack station ecosystem, chances are you're doing it because you like the sound of the software. But when it comes to the NAS you're going to buy, you look at the value, you look at your budget and the money you want to spend, and you realize you have certain priorities. Perhaps your priority is power. It is trying to do as many things as fast as possible. Or perhaps your priority is scale. Your idea is to go for a solution that has a tremendous amount of scale, the amount of storage capabilities. Now, of course, there is something in the middle. That's that DS2622 XS Plus that I mentioned earlier. But for that, you pay a pretty penny. This is the solution that gives you a good medium level of hardware, but also provides a greater deal of scalability and, most important of all, a huge amount of storage. But it arrives in some ways which some people are going to like and other people may not. But for now, let's unbox this NAS. Again, we're going to have to get this removed from the table because it is huge. Let's grab ourselves something here. Open this up. Again, it knocks around for around about between $1,600 and $2,000, depending on where you are in the world. In the UK, again linked in the description, you can pick it up for about $1,600 to $1,700, give or take down there. Of course, the price will change over time. Inside our accessories box, we've got a UK mains lead. We've got two Cat 5e cables. Again, the fact they're Cat 5e and not Cat 6 or Cat 7 isn't going to be a problem. You'll find out why later on. And we have screws, a quick start installation guide, information on the 3 years warranty, and keys for the locked individual bays. Now, I mentioned 3 years of warranty there. The system arrives, Synology include 3 years of warranty with the device. But you can extend it up to 5 years if you so choose. Again, that's not exclusive to this system. The majority of the Synology Plus series allow you to do that. Again, if you remove the first bits of foam, again, sturdy foam. Anyone that's ever watched this channel knows I will approve any brand that protects their system in transit to a good degree. And inside a lot of plastic, we have the NAS itself. So again, not a light little NAS here. This Disk Station 12 bay, they've been utilising this chassis pretty much on and off since about 2015. 2015, and even then it was a slight modification of the 2012-2013 series of 12 bays. Now again, it takes advantage of 12 SATA bays there on the front. Each one of them can be utilized either individually or combined together in a system of RAID, and again we'll go into more detail about that later on. It's a metal chassis. That means that when this is in operation, you are going to hear it. It's got an active cooling system of fans based in the rear, and we've got passive ventilation built into all of the front bays, as well as the logo featured on either side that's ventilated to allow more passive airflow to work in conjunction with those rear fans there. Now, at the top, we don't have an LCD display. There's no real-time information there beyond LEDs. Each one of the bays has got an LED light built in, and there's individual LEDs for the system status, for the network status, and for each of the 4 individual default Ethernet ports, and we will get onto that later on. So let's talk a little bit about design real quick, shall we? Again, for 12 bays of storage, as big as this looks on the table, do bear in mind on this side of the camera, we've got 4 bays, we've got 2 bay systems, and once you put that into perspective, it's not actually as big as you think it is. Taking advantage of the side load system in there, that is a tremendous amount of storage to be getting on with. On top of that, this system doesn't need to be fully populated. You can run it with as little as 1 hard drive inside, and then you can add drives as you gradually need them. Consequently, if you're someone that's leveraging your budget and maybe you've got $2,500 or £2,500 or whatever to deal with, then you might be looking at this solution and thinking, oh, it's a good 12 bay, but that's going to cost me a fortune to populate those. You don't have to do that. What you can do is get this as opposed to the 6 or 8, 4 or any of those base solutions, and then only put a few drives in it, and then gradually over time add them. Now that is made even more attractive on this system because it includes SHR, Synology Hybrid RAID. A lot of their enterprise grade solutions do not include this. Synology Hybrid RAID allows you to mix and match the drives. So say on day one you populated 4 bays of storage with 8 terabyte drives, and you run the system off those 4 drives in there with your 8 TBs per bay, taking advantage of a nice bit of 24 terabytes of playable space if you factor in 1 disk of redundancy. Now 2-3 years down the line you start running out of storage, so you want to get a little bit more storage in the bank, and you notice that although you could buy 8 TB drives, 12, 14, 16 TB drives has suddenly become considerably more affordable. Consequently, you start to think, do you know what? I'm just going to get bigger drives. Now, if you were using a traditional RAID configuration, like RAID 5, RAID 6, they will not allow you to use bigger hard drives. What they do is they ensure that every single bay is treated as the lowest capacity drive visible. So if you had this system filled with 8 TB drives in 4 bays and put 16 TB drives in the rest, it would still class them all as 8 TB drives within the RAID, and you would lose out on a substantial amount of storage. Synology Hybrid RAID, on the other hand, works sort of in the opposite way. Instead of classifying every drive as the smallest drive, it looks at whatever the biggest drive is, and then that becomes the maximum amount of redundancy it needs to calculate. Consequently, if you filled this with 16 TB drives, you would be able to take advantage of the majority of that new added storage in a way normal RAIDs wouldn't let you. No one ever puts mix and match drives in on day one in a RAID. SHR is not for day one mixed drive deployment. It is for, as years go on, to allow you to expand storage more easily and more flexibly with larger drives. On top of that, this system also supports a 12 bay expansion known as the DS2422. It allows you to add those 12 bays via a proprietary external mini SAS port to add this expansion. Now that expansion is a JBOD, just a bunch of drives. The RAID is handled by the system. So although you can spread the RAID over it and the expansion chassis, it is not really recommended you do that, because although it's possible, you are still then spreading a RAID over 2 boxes via a 12 gigabit SAS cable that might accidentally break. And if that happens, you could destabilize the RAID. You're effectively saying, I've got a 24 bay system and 12 bays just got disconnected at once. It's just not worth it. But the expansion is still usable as a means of creating a localized backup. It's still usable to bolt on fresh storage without replacing the drives. It is advantageous. However, we can't go any further if we're going to talk about storage on the DS2422 Plus without addressing the elephant in the room. That is Synology hard drives. Now, Synology have been releasing for the last couple of years their own branded drives. Originally Toshiba drives, but with Synology firmware on board. These arrive in 4TB, 8TB, 12TB and 16TB. So you've got 4 capacities to play with there, and they are enterprise class drives, comparable to Seagate Exos drives or WD Ultrastar. They are 550 TB workload drives that have performance that goes all the way up to around 270 megabytes, and on top of that, a great amount of cache and good architectural build, 7200 RPM inside. They are good drives. On top of that, the firmware is geared towards Synology systems, and the firmware can be updated on the drive from within DSM. So what's the problem? Why am I suddenly taking such a negative tone to talk about a drive that sounds pretty darn good? Well, Synology changed things around about a year or so ago with DSM. A lot of 2022 generation devices, such as, and including this one, changed the compatibility listings. That meant if you were going to go for a system like the DS2422, you're not really able to use Exos drives. You're not really able to use Seagate Ironwolf drives. You're not really able to use WD Red drives. You're not really able, you're getting the point now, to use Ultrastar drives. Now, this system still is compatible with those drives. You can put those in, bang, it'll see them. You can create a storage pool, you're laughing. However, the system will still persist in displaying a message that says that these drives are not on the compatibility list. It also changes the system status to show that it is under a warning, that you should be on your guard. Now, that's not the end of the world. You know the reasoning behind this. Indeed, Synology have been a little bit more flexible in the last 6 months. They've enabled a lot of the storage services like Smart and others to now be usable with third-party drives, when originally you weren't able to use them with anything but Synology's own drives. However, Synology has also stated that their support of systems that use third-party drives is provided with a caveat, and that is if they can't replicate your setup. That is to say, if you're using a setup that they cannot already guarantee that it is designed for, it may limit the amount of support they can provide for you. Now, there are reasons other than simply wanting to err towards the other third-party brands that I've discussed that people would like to go for rather than Synology drives. First and foremost, 16TB is a big size drive. It's a good size, but at the moment we're talking about 20 and 22 terabyte drives in the market from Seagate and WD. Where is the Synology 18, 20 or 22 TB drive? Toshiba have just started rolling out the MG09, so hopefully Synology will have a larger drive. But it works in the other direction as well. What about 1 TB, 2 TB? What about 4 TB? What about 6 TB? There's lots of capacities in between those 4 that people would rather err towards. And the problem with offering only 4 capacities in the available Synology drive lineup is that the pricing gets very difficult when you buy them en masse. And if you only have a certain amount of capacity in mind, 4 TB is still not a too shabby a size. Now 4 TB is starting to be rolled out by Synology, but a lot of users would still rather err towards some of those middle capacities there. So until Synology fleshes out their range a little bit, ups that availability, maybe makes the price a little bit more appealing for some, I think this will continue to be a bit of a debating point for many people. Now, moving slightly forward from the storage, when we look at the bays there, they are click and load trays that we get inside there with screw holes for the drives that go inside. You can install 2.5-inch media inside as well that can be utilised as a raw storage pool or for caching internally. However, once again, you're not able to use third-party drives and still remain 100% within the support window. We've got those Kingstons, we've got Seagates here in the studio, but unfortunately, if we use them, the system will still give us a compatibility warning. So again, there is that slight barrier, I think, for a lot of people when it comes to storage on this system, when storage is this thing's raison d'etre. It is just an enormous scaled storage solution. Now, when we talk about this system and its build quality, and we talk about, what people are gearing towards and what they want in it, we can talk a little bit about the internal hardware specifications, what it's going to be using to deal with all that data internally. Now, the CPU inside is an AMD embedded Ryzen. We've seen Synology utilize this in the 6-bay DS1621 Plus and the 8-bay DS1821 Plus. It is a quad-core 2.2 gigahertz processor, AMD once again. It is an x86 64-bit processor, so it's got great file handling. It's also got a good core-to-thread ratio, which is going to be great for those looking at virtualization that want to take advantage of virtual vCPUs internally to kind of be more spread their hardware resources out a little bit more towards VMs. The system arrives with 4 gig of DDR4 ECC error correcting code or error code correction memory in SODIMM form inside, and that memory can be upgraded up to a maximum 32 gig internally. Now again, do bear in mind with the memory upgrades on this system, you need to be looking at official memory. Once again, you can install third-party memory. In my testing, it has worked, but Synology aren't hugely in favour of this, and they do maintain that you are using this system in a way where it is not being designed for peak performance, and they haven't tested it in those ways. So once again, we end up walking the tightrope of compatibility between the brand and the end user. Again, so none of your Kingstons, none of your Crucials, none of your Sobrents, none of those. And I think for a lot of users, buying this system means you are getting in bed with the brand and going all in. You can't go with this system and start looking at drives from other brands, memory from other brands, SSDs from other brands, without feeling like Synology aren't 100% behind you with this system. And I think the fact that this system has arrived with that hard drive compatibility, DSM 7.1 change, has kind of altered how people see this system. For a long time, this was in the Plus series. It wasn't in the XS, it wasn't in the Enterprise, it was pure SMB. But all of the changes made to that compatibility, well, I'll stop harping on about in a moment, they are things people were okay with to a degree at the Enterprise tier. They looked at the Enterprise, your SA series, your UC series, your tippity-toppities, and went, that's Synology trying to break into the EMC, break into the NetApp, break into the HP zone. But these are not solutions like those. So having that hard drive position, I think, is going to upset users moving forward. And having that position affecting the memory as well on all Synology systems has been proven to ruffle feathers for quite a long time. It's a great system in its hardware regard, but that compatibility is going to be a hurdle, and I'll stop harping on about that now. So another thing to bear in mind about this system, which I still find sort of weird, it doesn't have M2 NVMe slots inside. Synology have been highfalutin and gunning for taking advantage of M2 NVMe's inside their NASs. And again, we are talking 2 bays, we're talking 4 bays. Pretty much all of them have got M2 slots inside. There's, you look at the ratios, 8 out of 10 Synology NASs now have M2 NVMe slots in the base, but not this one. This system, in order to take advantage of M2 NVMe's, you have to add an upgrade card. And you add that upgrade card by installing it in the PCIe slot here at the top. You see that PCIe slot up there? This allows you to install cards such as the E10GT1 or the M2D20 or dual port 10GBE cards, 1 port 10GBE card, a dual port 25 gig fiber channel card. That slot here is what makes the difference for many between this and spending another £1,000 on that DS3622 XS Plus. This allows you to have that base level hardware, have all of the storage capability, but also have the means to upgrade. Now, I'm still disappointed that the M2 slots are not available on this system in its default build. And the fact you've got to go out and get an expansion card to take advantage of it is still a little disappointing. However, with the combo card such as this one, which has got two M2 NVMe SSD slots on board and a 10GB card, this inside that PCIe Gen 3 x 8 slot really makes up a lot of ground for me. And I think with this card knocking around the 250 mark, and the advantages it brings to the end user on 12 bays of SATA storage being read and written to simultaneously, trust me, it's better to have that than to not have it at all. And also remember, if you wanted 10 GBE on that Xeon one, $1,000. Now, why am I talking so much about expansions and PCIEs? Well, it's because of the other thing about this box that left me a little sad. There's not many things about this NAS I don't like. I think it's a very, very good high-end storage solution from Synology. But there's just a couple of design choices that, although make sense from a portfolio stance when you look at how the systems and how much they cost are laid out, but the brand in general. And that is these guys. You know I was going to talk about this. I've talked about it in other videos. This system arrives with 1 gigabit Ethernet ports there. Why? It's 2022. This system arriving with 1 GBE port, albeit 4 of them, so you've got lag, link aggregation or port trunking to take care of things with a smart switch. 1 GBE on this system seems weirdly archaic. The 12-bay SMB series, the Plus series, has arrived with 4 1 GBE ports, I believe, in every iteration for the last decade. It's only been some of the enterprise stuff that's arrived with a 10 GBE port. Now, they could have gone the 2.5 GBE slot port route on this. 2.5 GBE is growing. A number of you may hear me say that and go, 2.5 GBE isn't around that much at the moment. It might be, a negative investment. Well, how long do you expect this system to last? You want this system to last 3 to 5 years, right? So you want your network connectivity to be good in 3 to 5 years, right? And therefore, expecting 2.5 GBE in 2022, when I'm just about to spend nearly $2,000 on a NAS, I don't think is that much to ask. Now, again, 1 GBE and the lag factor on there is still going to be great. And of course, you've got your PCIe upgradability up there, which means you're going to get some great expandable network connectivity. And with the dual port card knocking around for about 200, you get an external connection of up to 2,000 megabytes per second, which these 12 bays here are just waiting to saturate. And then you've got your fiber channel cards too. You do have USB ports here, which are increasingly becoming a little bit more redundant with every year on Synology systems. It doesn't support many printers anymore or scanners, Wi-Fi adapters. There is no official support of USB to 2.5 GBE or USB to 5 GBE or even USB to 1 GBE adapters. You can attach storage there, but you can't use that storage as an expanded drive. You could, for example, utilize this system and then perhaps attach the USB Suport 8-bay, this absolute behemoth over here, to add 8 bays of storage onto this system. But bear in mind, this is still a JBOD box, and that system isn't going to let you use it as an expansion over USB. So, again, as good as all that sounds, you are still looking about a build makeup here where the expansion port here is your main means for adding storage. And these USB ports, although they can be used for things like UPSs, and there are some adapters that are compatible with it, those USB ports are really only for storage. And given that they're both USB 3.2 Gen 1, so 5 gigabits per second connectivity on a 12-bay system, that's going to be quite a bottleneck there for running large amounts of data to an external drive on this system. Now, when it comes to cooling on this rear system here is where we've got our cooling fans, and this whole plate can be removed for reasons of maintenance. So if we jiggle that off of there, get that out, you can see there is our fan module, a couple of very big, very deep 12mm fans there. And again, These can be adjusted while the system's in operation, but I do not recommend you do it. We are still talking about a large 12-bay system in operation. You're going to want all of the active cooling that you can on this system. Just to give it a little bit of perspective, this system has no drives inside right now. I'm going to put that there. We're going to grab ourselves a power cable, and we're just going to see how much noise the fans make on their own. So right now the microphone is a little under 30 centimeters. And that's the default level of noise this system is going to make with just those fans there in the background. But how much noise is this system going to make with 4 drives inside? Let's have a little look. So we've got 3 of the drives already installed. There is a Synology drive inside one of those bays. Hopefully the lighting won't absolutely ruin this. So let's get our final drive of the 4 installed inside this system. Get that installed there, and now we're going to see how those 4 drives sound inside this system to give you a little bit of perspective. The system's going to run its diagnostics now. It will just very quickly check its internal mechanism, and then after that, when you see 4 little green lights appear here on the top, that will give you some idea about when the system's ready to boot those drives. Now again, bear in mind, Synology drives are not the quietest. These are enterprise grade drives, and they are not designed to be worked at in this close proximity. We're only doing it here to give you some idea about how much noise this system, even in a relatively modest build, will be. We have green lights. Here we go, we're spinning. The fan has ramped up ever so slightly. But nothing too bad. Again, things will be noisier when these drives are being accessed, such as when DSM is being installed, and we're doing a software review of this system shortly, as well as delving a little bit deeper into that hard drive stuff mentioned earlier on. But otherwise, for now, let's go ahead and power that down and talk a little bit about DSM on this system. Because, let's face it, as mentioned in the introduction, if you're looking at a Synology NAS system, you're almost certainly doing it because of DSM, Disk Station Manager. Synology, when you buy any solution, it has to be said that in a ratio of 100%, at least 60 to maybe even 70% of the money you're paying is going towards that software. Disk Station Manager is by far one of the best platforms out there in terms of storage handling, and all of the applications and the design and the user experience is unparalleled. So with that, you end up with the Collaboration Suite, which is a series of tools for offices and indeed solo users to take advantage of. Everything from calendar handling in Synology Calendar, Synology Mail for an email client, Synology Chat as an alternative to Skype or WhatsApp. Synology Office gives you an alternative to the likes of Office 365 and Google Docs. Synology Drive, which started once as a simple emulated single portal access point to your data like Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive, has now become an incredible local synchronization and team drive sharing tool with file pinning, file streaming, and lots of other applications and services built in. Then you've got Surveillance Station that allows you to take advantage of multiple IP cameras in your home or business environment and control them and view them and record them via a professional and enterprise grade user interface there that can be accessed via the web browser or multiple apps. But do bear in mind, you only get 2 licenses with this system. On top of that, Synology Virtual Machine Manager to deploy customized virtual machines on this system. And then you can install and run multiple, but just bear in mind that 4 gig of memory, you're going to have to upgrade it early doors. Alongside that, you've got backup and synchronization tools such as Active Backup Suite for business that can synchronize and back up a wide number of virtual and bare metal hardware to this system, as well as synchronization with your cloud services such as Microsoft Office 365 and Google Workspace. So if you are a business that's running, say, with Google Workspace, and you're using your Google email, you're using the domain you've got there, you've got accounts and more all built into the Google ecosystem, but they're all cloud and therefore internet managed, what you can do is synchronize that data with the NAS and then access it through the NAS. Then if you have an internet connection drop, you can still access that data natively via the way it is portrayed by the Active Backup Suite software, and then any changes you make to that data, because you're still going to be using your existing interface, will then be applied to the cloud via the Synology and Active Backup once the internet is restored. There are other tools such as Hyper Backup to create a multi-stage backup routine. There's also inclusion and application advantages by Synology's own own cloud service known as C2, with more services being added all the time, such as C2 surveillance, other tools for C2 backup and C2 password. And then you've got things like hybrid share that allow you to synchronize an area of shared cloud storage with the NAS with the visibility of localized storage. Again, Synology most certainly puts their own applications and services above any other, and when you're buying a Synology solution, you are getting a complete hardware software solution, and you can't really question that in what you're getting. Although their support of third-party software is a little weaker, and certainly their support of third-party hardware has become a little stricter over the last year or so, you still can't fault Synology's place in the NAS industry as still remaining very much at the top. And if you're looking at a NAS for your business and you prioritize storage both now and long term, there aren't many better desktop solutions from any brand, let alone Synology, than this. And that's ultimately why, despite those reservations I might have and you might have over compatibility and support of hardware, if you're prepared to fully commit to the Synology ecosystem, there aren't many better solutions than this right now for your money. And that has been our review. Now we're going to be delving deeper into the software and that compatibility in follow-up videos very, very soon. Once again, thanks to CCL for supplying this unit for today's review. I don't know how long I'm going to have it here for, but we're going to really have some fun with it. Take it apart, take some internal photos that are going to be linked in the NAS Compares description below. And if you want to do this channel a favour, visit CCL, because again, as long as they like us, they're going to keep sending us some stuff to review for you guys, and the link's there in the description if you want to take advantage of it. It's up to you. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, click like. It helps me understand what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. If you want to learn more, click subscribe as we delve and dig deeper into this system. And of course, use the free advice section linked in the description to NAS Compares. Genuinely free. There's donate buttons. Use them, ignore them. It's manned by me and Eddie the Web Guy. So if you don't quite know what solution you need for your setup yet, use it. It isn't going to cost you anything, and it might take us an extra day or so to answer your email because we're two humans with lives, but we try to answer every single one. But otherwise, that was the DS2422 Plus. Thank you so much for watching, and otherwise, I will see you next time.